Welcome to another episode of Marvel Cinematic University. Sure, we talk about everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and everything around it too. I'm your host for today, Jay Christie. Anthony is not here because, as he made clear on a previous episode, he was not going to spend Valentine's Day seeing this movie. As you can tell by the title, we're talking Madam Web. And filling in for Anthony is one of the few people I knew for a fact was going to see this movie, and also a great friend of the show. Brought 4 costume changes to our, table read. Rachel Leishman. Rachel, thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course, of course. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm very excited to talk about this movie because I imagine, I mean, based on the fact that you see as many movies as you do and talk about them the way you do, some
Mhm.
movies are, you see them and you're like, is that good? No. Will I have a lot of mileage talking about it? Absolutely. And I think that, and I want to hear your experience next, but a thought I want to throw out immediately is that this movie was compared a lot to Morbius. And the thing I say the difference is Morbius was not much fun to talk about, whereas this is unlike most things I've ever seen. And so, what was, because you saw, I think, early at a critic screening, what was your first impression?
I think that this is bad fun. So, I've been comparing it a lot to Daredevil 2003
Mm hmm.
because I had so much fun watching that movie when it came out. I really enjoyed, meeting these characters because at that point we didn't really have much Daredevil stuff. We only
Mm
had the
hmm.
comic. And so for me, Madam Web was a lot like that because these are all new characters. Like, not that many people know Madam Web because
Mm hmm.
even the Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark musical, it was Julie Taymor just thought she was creating a new character and just created Madam Web.
Mm,
Um,
and that was the only problem with that musical.
yeah, only problem was Arachne, um, a character I did like. But with this, as much as people were like dogging on it, I thought it was fun. Like, it's bad fun. I can
Yeah.
talk about Adam Scott for forever.
Don't worry, I have a section in my notes. Just let Rachel talk about Adam Scott. We'll get there.
But it's just like all of the like it's I think people I read a lot of takes and I agree with these that it's good that we have these bad superhero movies still because that was kind of what we had for a really long time
Yeah.
and we learned to love them. We were like, I'm going to
Yes.
cherish this really bad Daredevil movie
Mhm.
because it's the only thing I'm getting.
Yeah.
And we kind of need that balance of like, yes, we have high prestige
Mhm.
like things like the Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. We have like good comic book stuff with
Mm.
the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sometimes you just want really bad things, and you want to
Yeah.
just go and see bad superhero fights.
Because I think the thing about it is, like, Morbius, like I said, I'm gonna compare it to that a lot because I saw a lot of people saying it was worse than Morbius, which, like, maybe on a technical level, because I guess, like, usually Morbius might be more competently edited, but, like, Morbius feels like it was written and directed by Sony executives trying to capture the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whereas this movie simultaneously feels like it was made by 80 executives and no one. Like, it really feels like there's no, and I don't want to dog S.J. Clarkson because she's a competent television director, and so clearly shit happened. But this, I can't make sense of this movie in a way that, as a sicko who watches everything, I'm like, I'll be thinking about this movie for a long time.
I said it feels like because today's my friend described it as she had seen online that people said it felt like it was written by AI. I said, no,
No,
you can tell a human wrote it. I think the way it reads to me is a human was told we need a Madam Web story with
yeah,
these three characters,
mhm,
and that person had no idea who any of them were
yes,
and tried to just make it work.
yeah.
And so
As
Spider-Man
someone
fans
who's
are like, and everyone else is kind of like, this is just bad.
yeah, as someone who's never read these comics, I couldn't tell you really anything about the characters other than Madame Web. Like I don't.
Well, Julia's last name is incorrect because her name is
uh,
Julia Carpenter, and she's like a single mom. So
mhm.
it's just they were like, they're all high school kids.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll be spoiling this movie because I don't really know how to talk about this without doing that. And also, like, I'll say this: you know whether or not you're going to see Madam Web. It's less about the movie itself and more about what kind of person you are, how you spend your money, how you spend your free time.
If
If
you're
you're like
paying
Anthony,
some stubs, what are you doing?
yeah, exactly. Or I mean, I live 5 minutes from a Regal, so I got Regal Unlimited. I have saved so much money this year already. I'm gonna get like kicked. You can get kicked out of a buffet if you stay too long. That's gonna be me with Regal Unlimited. But
I've
if you're
I've
like,
maxed out my AMC stubs so many times, and we're like, I guess we'll wait till Friday to figure out when we can
see,
see this movie.
the good thing about being in Regal Unlimited and Regal being like the second tier chain is that you can't max it out. So I
Mm.
have, yeah, it's a great thing. But I think in hindsight, the most inexplicable thing in this movie is realizing that other than Madam Web, the three main characters only get their powers in visions.
Yeah, that was the crazy. I mean, should we
Yeah,
hold on? Let's just go through this in order. Because
yeah, of course.
do you want me to very quickly run down Madam Web, then we can talk about all the
Yes, I think
crazy?
that that will be fun for you to do and me to listen to.
Okay, so it starts in the fucking Amazon. Can I
Mhm.
swear?
Of course, yes, yes, absolutely.
It starts in the fucking Amazon, and Madam Web, aka Cassie Webb, her name is Cassandra Webb, and her mom researches spiders
Hmm.
in the Amazon where she met him.
Hmm.
But it's we're seeing the like the viral meme is the first thing you see in this
Hmm.
movie, which spoiler that line not in the movie.
No.
Um, but so Cassie Webb is not born yet. She is
Hmm.
in her mother's belly, and
Hmm.
her mom, 9 months pregnant,
Hmm.
is in the Amazon researching spiders.
Hmm.
Um, and she catches this elusive spider that they're like, no one's ever caught one of these before,
Hmm.
but other than the spider people who just
Hmm.
exist in the Amazon forest.
Hmm.
And so then this man is who was later revealed to be Ezekiel Sims is standing behind her and he's like, you're never gonna find the spider. And it's like revealed throughout this whole thing that he basically wants the spider for himself so that he can get spider powers. He's not really good at his spider powers, but he wants
No,
the spider powers.
no.
So he ends up shooting her because she won't give him the spider. So then he gets the spider anyway, but
Hmm.
she gets shot in the process. And so
Hmm.
then the spider people are like, "I'm gonna take you, and we're gonna put
Hmm.
you in this water that looks like it's healing, but you still have to get bit by a spider."
Yeah.
So then that is how Cassie Webb gets her powers. Is that her mother is giving birth to her in a pool of
Hmm.
not healing water.
No, it's just
Um,
water.
it's just water after she got bit by a spider.
Yeah.
But her all of her powers are latent. You do not see any of these powers until Cassie Webb almost dies
Yeah.
because she's a paramedic.
Hmm.
He's like, "Oh, look how good I am! I'm so quirky." And she's like, "I'm gonna like say sassy things to my partner Ben Parker,
Hmm.
aka Adam Scott,
Hmm.
who we'll get into all of that because the
Hmm.
whole allusion to Peter Parker is nuts in this movie.
It is insane. You could literally lift it out of the movie.
They basically are like like over everything to do with Peter Parker.
Yeah.
But that is her paramedic buddy, who I don't ever. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it is established anywhere that Uncle Ben used to be a paramedic. I think
No,
they
I
just
I
made that
don't.
up.
No, I don't think that that's a thing. It's not obviously never been in the movies, and as my brief comic knowledge, I don't think he's ever been a paramedic. Um,
I'm hold on, Uncle Ben's former job, Spider Man. I was like, I need answers.
yeah, because
He was an electrician.
that's what I
That's why I
thought.
was like,
I remember
do
in because yeah, in the Tobey Maguire ones, they reference him getting laid off. Which remember my thought was like, he looks like he should be
he's always
retired already.
fixing things. Isn't he always like fixing things around their
Yeah,
house before
I thought
he
he was I
dies?
thought he was like an electrician handyman, but in this, he's a paramedic. Fine.
Okay. Anyways, so should say this movie's set in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
None of us know why. Because Tom Holland's Spider-Man born in 2001.
Yeah.
So this is not him.
Yeah.
It's surely not Andrew Garfield
No.
or Tobey Maguire. So now this is a fourth Spider-Man because it's
I
2003 when the Spider-Man is born.
I just because the choice, and well, I'm skipping a hell of that, but to have uh you know Peter Parker's mother be pregnant in it, like that just was too much. I didn't need that.
Richard's on a business trip the entire time. We
Yeah,
never see Richard Parker.
yeah.
Richard
I
just
didn't need that. I thought it was just gonna be because I didn't know a ton going in because I wanted to kind of be surprised, and I'm like, okay, fine. Uncle Ben's a side character, whatever. I do a podcast about cinematic universes. I'm used to shit like this. And then when it's like when they have the baby shower, I'm like, I don't need to see Peter Parker in utero. This is not relevant to me.
Yeah. So right before that, like the baby shower, Cassie is trying to save a guy in a car. And what great paramedics they are. Nowhere in their brain were they like, "Hey, this car that is like teetering like back
Hmm.
and forth, it is so stable that we can get this guy out of the car and I can fully climb in the
Yeah,
car to get him out." N- I'm so sorry. And the fire trucks were there. So no one thought to be like, "Hey girl, maybe don't do that.
yeah.
Maybe don't get in the car that is clearly not stable."
And the thing that jumped out to me too, and after she gets pulled out of the water, there's obviously a whole crowd around when there's the
Mhm.
guy in the bridge, and that's going to involve a lot of paramedics there, right? That's not just going to be one truck. And so when Ben pulls her out of the water, it's just her and Ben underneath the bridge. No other paramedics are there to help. No,
Everyone else said,
no
"You're
one
good."
has oxygen. Also, like, I've never taken a CPR course, but I'm pretty sure if you save someone from the water, you have to do rescue breaths. You don't just push on their chest. I just, wow.
That this whole movie was like, all you need to survive is CPR.
And the thing is, CPR training is important. I'm glad that this movie is pro CPR training, but it would be nice if they were to show correct CPR. You know, it feels like such a layup too of like, you know, the whole thing that there's songs you play when you do CPR. Pay a
Yeah,
little money to the Bee Gees, have a bit where they play "Staying Alive" and have fun doing it. Like these are layups that they miss, but that's a note.
yeah, they anyway, so she has a near-death experience. In her near-death experience, she learns that actually she has powers to see the future.
Hmm.
And this all comes into play when she shows up at her at the baby shower for Mary Parker, who she doesn't know.
Yeah, the thing too is she doesn't know her. Fine, you know, I've been invited to parties that I don't know people. If you're, well, I'll say this: she does not have the right energy to be a plus one. You know, she's really awkward. But then
Just stay
also,
outside with the guys. At
yeah,
that point, if you don't know any of the women other
yeah,
than the wife of the like chief of the paramedics, which I
yeah.
didn't know that was a thing, maybe just kind of don't.
And she gets called on multiple occasions to participate in these games.
And she doesn't know these people.
No. And like the thing too is there's the bit where you're supposed to they have a thing where you're supposed to write a thing about your mother, right? On and they pull out hers and it's blank and she explains it's because, you know, her mother died and she's awkward. She like does a very Dakota Johnson-y thing, making awkward jokes. And everyone's like kind of mad at her and it's just like, what the fuck is like uh, what do you want her to do? You guys are write everything about her mother.
I mean, like, as someone, who my dad's dead,
Mm.
I would have been like, I would have been like, "Oh, he's dead." Like, I would
Yeah.
have like done something that was like,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm making a joke in this situation, but, like, don't have any "She
Okay.
died before I
Yeah.
got to meet her." Like, so then when they opened it, they would at least read it instead.
Yeah, I don't know what her idea was, or like maybe you just don't put a slip of paper in the pile. Like this, and I will get back to the plot, but I just will say this character is, I think, both because of the writing and also because Dakota Johnson does not have a handle on it because of the writing, is almost completely inscrutable from moment to moment.
Yeah.
In that sometimes she's like kind of mocking them serial as she's doing it, which is when I think it's actually when she's at her best because I think that's where Dakota is most comfortable. But then like in ways she's an incredibly severe person
Mhm.
and like I just don't understand like what was this person's life like you can say this about a lot of the characters in it but I genuinely don't know what her life looked like the day before this movie started at all.
She was just driving around feeding a cat milk like it was 1984. Like,
Hmm.
no, we've known for decades not to feed cats milk, and then she's like, "You seem hungry. Yeah, maybe give the cat food."
And also we already established that she was a foster kid but she has to say us strays got to take care of each other. I,
Sit
I,
down.
I'm actually curious. Has a person who actually like was adopted or in the foster system have they ever made a point about calling themselves a stray? Because I feel like in any time a movie has a character that is adopted in some way, they always will find an animal and say something like "oh strays." Like the biggest. I don't think it's ever actually happened in real life.
No, neither. But to fast forward slightly, because this plot is just like there's a lot of her discovering her power in a way that makes no sense because she still can't figure it out for the majority of this very long
No.
movie. But the idea is she gets glimpses and then she gets put back. Like
Hmm.
she sees the future and thinks that she's just in a time loop, only to realize that it was just her seeing the
Yeah.
future. And then that she's like, "Did we do this?"
Hmm.
But so. she sees these girls that she is on a train with
Mhm.
all dying in
Wait,
very
can we just
horrific.
note, because yeah, I understand why you skipped it because it's not important, but comedian Mike Epps is in this movie and he dies in a flash forward, and it's just kind of like the
Oh,
entire time I'm
right.
like,
So
that
he is
can't be Mike
her.
Epps. That
He
can't be
is
Mike Epps
her.
because Mike Epps would not be in this movie.
But he's so yeah. One of the times where she realizes like, oh, my powers can maybe save people, which is like spurred on it like later, is the like chief of paramedics or whatever his actual job title was, is like in an ambulance, and she goes, "Please let me drive the ambulance," and he's like, "What? Is something gonna happen to me when I drive?" Because she kept having flashes that while they're at the Pepsi factory that is filled with fireworks that doesn't exist, like the Pepsi factory is not a thing.
Yeah.
Um, she is like, "Oh, let me drive. I keep like she didn't say I keep seeing you dying in this car." But that's what happens. He drives off. He survives saving people in a firework
Mm.
explosion
Yep.
to die because he didn't look both ways.
Yeah. It's and I'll say, as a resident of Astoria, Long Island City, I did appreciate the representation of seeing the Pepsi sign. But we can do better. We can do better than that.
He just made up a building.
Yeah, it's not a fireworks building. But yeah, and so as you mentioned, she's seeing these people on the train. She's seeing them die, which like it's unfortunate because I feel like the biggest slam dunk this movie can have is dramatizing the flash forwards, because
Mhm.
like that is a cool device, and it feels like it's frustrating because obviously the character is confused because she doesn't know that she's seeing flash forwards, and so she's freaking out. But they kind of make the choice to make it also confusing to the audience. But it's like, we bought a ticket to Madam Web, the person who can see the futures. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't need this to be confusing to us, you know? Like, that's
Yeah.
kind of, and the train scene was really annoying to me because it's like, I get it. You can have her
Mhm.
being confused, but like, I understand what's going on. Stop trying to hide. I know she's seeing the future, you know?
Yeah. And it's okay. But then she has to watch these girls die 20 times before she's like, maybe I should do something.
Yeah.
Um, and so she's like, get off the train. She basically waits until she sees the guy that she has
Yeah.
seen murdering them over and over and over again. It wasn't enough that it happened one time to someone she knew. She
Mm-hmm.
had to wait until the guy
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
basically like coming in the
Mm.
room, and then she's like, get off the train. And so they're all running, and they like escape Ezekiel Sims before he gets to kill any of them, and all of these girls kind of are like, what's going on, why are you doing
Yeah.
this? And the only one that has motivation to actually follow her is Maddie, because
Mm.
Maddie like gets her skateboard taken away,
Yeah.
and she's like, give me back my property,
Mm-hmm.
and is running after her, and like, so like Dakota Johnson's using it to like
Mm.
make her go with her through all this stuff. But it is insane that the other two are like, okay, where are we going?
Yeah. I think that that's where the lack of clarity for the Cassie character really is most apparent, because
Mhm.
you can imagine a character that is like compelling and convincing enough to kind of temporarily get these girls to, but like both the character is written as like a very reluctant hero, which
Yeah.
like fine, but also she's a paramedic, so what are we doing here? But in two, like, why make her a paramedic if we do that? But also two,
Yeah.
she, on the one hand, like, I respect that Dakota Johnson's not going to give 150% for something that she doesn't think is good. But also, if she gave 150% for some of these lines, I think it'll work better. That, like, I
Mhm.
don't believe her when she's saying that these girls are going to die, and I just saw them die in a flash forward. So, it like, this bit really is like, why, especially, like, you know, like you said, Maddie, she has her skateboard. You know, Julia seems kind of like shy, and, you know, maybe but the fact that Anya follows along is just like, why? Why on earth is
Yeah, because she establishes when they get to the woods, oh, you live in my building. So it wasn't like she clued in when all that was happening,
yeah,
like, oh, wait, I actually know her. Like,
yeah,
she lives in my building. I'm just gonna like follow her if she's telling me something bad's happening. It was literally not until she got to the woods. It was like, wait, I know you. You live in my building.
yeah. And, you know, we should mention that Ezekiel Sum's a bad guy. He is trying to kill these girls
Yeah.
because he keeps having a vision of them killing him with spider powers in his building, and inexplicably he has Zasha Mamet on as a computer person, um, and like because now basically with 2003 technology we can scan faces or whatever and find them, and
It's
he's
Big
gonna
Brother. They
yeah he,
own Big Brother.
and like I the thing that really made this movie feel like it came out in 2003 like Daredevil is having a villain where they clearly had to ADR a lot of his dialogue because presumably you couldn't understand it. I don't know, I just noticed almost
The
every line is
ADR
ADR'd.
is so bad in this movie. At one point, Dakota Johnson,
Yeah,
and I thought to myself, okay, well, maybe it's just like the press screening is
yeah,
like getting like we're getting a slightly unfinished one because they're trying to show it before it comes out. But then I stopped and thought about it. I was like,
no,
no, this movie literally comes out tomorrow. There's no
yeah,
way. So the ADR at one point, Dakota Johnson at like loud as could be, full volume, says something, and then it cuts to like the line they recorded in that moment, and it
mm,
is not at all connected. Like they
no,
didn't even like get the levels
yeah.
right. It's insane.
And I think that like obviously this movie would not have been solved if the villain was more compelling, but
Yeah.
like it's really like nothing here. And yeah, I don't want to, I don't want to put it at the feet of Tahar Rahim, but it really feels like they didn't have an idea. He didn't really have a clear idea, and once again, feels very 2003. Because now in these days, at least you probably cast someone who like has some level of charisma, or you give. But it just was once again the fact that his motivation was simply like these girls are going to kill me, and there was no like deeper. We really never got a deep idea of why he wanted the spider in the first place. What does he do with his powers? How does he
Yeah,
like? What is
it seems like he does nothing with his powers other than see the future and know that like these girls are going to try to kill him.
yeah?
Like that's kind of what it seems like.
In the same way with Cassie, what does Ezekiel Sims do the day before this movie starts? Like, what is his life?
There is none. They gave
I mean,
you
it's
the
just like
minimum.
you start off with him. He's hooking up with Crossing Jordan, and then he's on a
Yeah, Jill
quest.
Ennis.
I was like,
I
that
was
can't
like,
be Crossing
Jill.
Jordan, but sure enough, good for her. But yeah,
Yeah, I was so happy for Jill.
yeah, and so like I said, they're in the woods, and Cassie has to go back into the city to look at her mom's research because she needs to learn about these spiders or whatever. And like any characters in anything, when you tell a character not to run off, they of course run off, despite the fact that like they know that they have
Yeah,
like
well,
an
she abandoned them in the middle of the woods
true
in where, New Jersey?
in New Jersey, which is a problem. There's just a whole lot of just completely like because I get that simultaneously you want to leave them somewhere they can't be found, but also it's 2003, it's not 2024, so you probably could find a cheap motel, which they eventually do. And but these girls they want to go to a diner, and it's 2003 because they play Toxic, which I think is a good choice. I think you have to. Um,
Yeah, the guy on the radio literally says, "This song's gonna be a big hit."
and that's really dumb to say too, because it'd be one thing if it was a song by like an obscure artist that eventually became big. Like this is Britney's third album. What are we doing? Like, or fourth album even? I
Yeah,
forget.
we knew that "Oops, I Did It Again" had already
Yeah.
happened at this point.
And as you mentioned, this is where I think the bit of he was studying spiders in the Amazon, researching spiders with my mom before she died.
That's in the motel.
Oh right, okay, you're right. Sorry,
That is 100%, it should have been in the motel.
you're right.
But, like, these dumb girls who, like, run off,
Mm,
and we're like, "We're really hungry, there's, like, a diner up the road we can go to."
mm,
And I was like, I mean, I get that they don't live in a surveillance state like everyone currently does, but it's still, like, wild that they're just like, "This will be fine. We're gonna go eat,
yeah,
and then we're gonna come back here." And then they just abandon that. Like, no one has a sense of, like, maybe we should, like,
yeah. Get it to go box.
yeah, be intelligent and kinda be like, "We have to hurry up, get the food, and go, because if we don't, whatever, whatever, whatever." Oh, and also she's like, "I have my dad's money." I'm like, "So you're using a credit card?
Yeah. I mean,
You're using a credit card?"
and then they of course they can't go there without dancing on a table for some what like football players it
All
looks
3
like.
of them. All
And it,
3 of them.
it's just like I don't want to. Obviously, teenagers make dumb decisions, but you would not know from the way that they act in the scene that the thing that they are running from is like a enhanced individual that killed a couple cops in front of them. Like
No,
they,
it's just like the Zodiac killer.
yeah,
They're, like, running from someone who literally could throw a car at them, and they're like
yes,
he like, don't
yeah,
wasn't it Maddie who was like, "He's climbing on the walls?"
yeah,
Like
if I see a person climb on the walls and kill a bunch of people in front of me, I am not taking a single risk for the rest of my life. That is done. My life as I know it is over.
You tell me to stand in the woods, I'm standing in the woods.
Yeah.
I'll starve.
And so, yeah, she ends up saving them because there's a flash forward bit where he kills them. And this is where we learn also he has like some type of poison that he administers. There's
Which is
just
like
so much going on in this
he's like a
movie.
Black Widow.
I just don't really know what. Because, like, I think of all of the Spider Man spin off movies, this is the one that I think the absence of Spider Man is most glaringly obvious, which is not a dumb. I mean, it
Yeah,
just.
well, 'cause they're just like, here's Ben Parker and Mary Parker, but
Yeah.
there's no May,
But
there's no
even
Richard, and there's no
even if you
Peter.
take away the stuff that's literally related to Spider-Man, you have a guy who is in a Spider-Man like suit who has Spider-Man like powers. It's spider stuff, spider stuff, spider stuff. At least like with like Venom, it's like theoretically you could make a movie about an alien symbiote that comes to the Earth. It with Morbius
And you have
theoretically.
Eddie Brock still.
Yeah, and you could make a movie about a character that gets bitten by, bats and becomes a living vampire. Like, those things don't need Spider-Man. But when you see Ezekiel Sims, you're like, that's Spider-Man.
Yeah, this was an insane way of like Madam Web's origin,
Yeah.
but it was like so essentially he finds the dancing girls
Yeah.
on the table because someone in the diner is like, "Hey, those look like those missing girls." And I do have to say, so everyone keeps saying something that happens later, but it is explained that the police
Mm-hmm.
and the people who were like looking for this woman who kidnapped these 3
Mm-hmm.
girls, it just says that they think, "Oh, this woman kidnapped these 3 girls." Cassie isn't like, the police don't think it's Cassie.
Mm-hmm.
Ezekiel Sims and
Yeah.
Zoe Shamamit, they're the ones who know that it's Cassie.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, she can get on a plane and use her passport and stuff because the cops aren't looking for
And
her. Ezekiel
and
Sims is looking for her.
the most inexplicable thing is that it is pronounced Zastra, as in rhyming with Sasha. I just will never understand that.
Really? I thought it
It
was
is.
Zosha.
I'm almost
Zasha?
positive. I'm almost positive it is. Yeah, I might be wrong, but at least I heard her
I've been
introduced.
doing
Like,
wrong my entire life.
I at least I heard her introduced that way on a talk show once. Maybe the person who did that was wrong, but uh,
Well, it's only her and Ezekiel Sims who know it's Cassie. And unless like there was some news thing where like the news person was like, her name is Cassandra Webb.
yeah.
I
And
don't think it's
now
they don't think
a thing that friend of the show Michael Springthorpe brought up, which I think is fair, is obviously the nominative determinism of having someone named Webb be someone who's on the spiders is dumb. But you do have to remember, as he pointed out, that Mark Webb directed 2 Spider-Man movies, so like, the real world is weird too.
well, and also the spider thing is not like her mom's last name was clearly Webb, but and the spider thing which comes into play later is not like it wasn't like she spent her life researching spiders. It like
No, that was
happens
her
because
mom.
of a reason. It, like, happens because of a reason. It's not
Yes.
like her mom's life was researching spiders. But the so he finds them. Cassie runs him over with a taxi that she
Mhm.
had stolen earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "Come on." And they all get in the car, they leave and they go to a motel.
Hmm.
So at this motel, at one point it seemed like she left them to go back and try
Yeah.
and connect with Ezekiel, but then she wakes up
It's a flash forward moment,
in
I
the
think.
bed. Yeah, it was crazy. That one was the most unclear for me. I'm like,
Yeah,
what's
because
happening?
the movie that this reminded me of, and this is a movie that I only know because friend of the show Zach Harper does a show called Cinephobe about bad movies, and one of the most important bad movies in that podcast is the Nicolas Cage film Next, which I don't know if you've ever seen. It's not very good, but it's about Nicolas Cage plays a guy who can see 90 seconds into the future, and one of the things
Oh
about it
wait,
is
I have seen that movie.
yes. The thing about it is, it's a really dumb movie, but it actually has like 2 sequences that do what this movie tries to do incredibly well because they make it clear that every single time he sees the future and changes something slightly, it's a whole new 90 seconds. That is the thing that movie makes clear, and that's how you can have like there's a scene, for example, where they show like a top-down view of him trying to evade security at a casino, and you just see him make a bunch of weird movements and like dodge people perfectly. It's like, oh, because in his head he can see all these different futures. Or there's a moment where you see him like, I'm gonna search this warehouse really quickly because he can search it in all different 90-second jumps.
Yeah.
And that movie is once again really not good. But I was honestly watching Mad Blood being like, Next did this a lot better.
Well, and it's like later in the movie when they like finally explain how her power works. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, all this makes a little bit more sense now. but you had an entire, like, hour and
Yeah.
35 minutes of a movie where I'm like, "I don't know what the hell's going
Yeah.
on." Like, I don't know how her power works because it's not very useful.
No.
And then it's like they explain like, "Oh, you had to come into your full power." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, did she?" But
Yeah.
it's like, okay, they get first of all, I like that she just, like, went home the reason the girls were abandoned
Yeah.
was she went to her house and was like, "I need to get my mom's research
Mhm.
because she'll have answers." And it's like, I guess in theory, she was like, "Okay, my mom will have the research for why this is happening to
Mm.
me, I
Mm.
guess, or that guy." Like, I don't know why she thought her mom would have that
Mhm.
research. That is what's baffling to me.
Yeah, because
She went and just got it.
simultaneously, she clearly resents her mom for being 9 months pregnant in the Amazon and dying.
Yeah,
Which, you know what? A lot of characters in movies and TV resent their parents unfairly. I think that until she knows the actual truth, that's a fair resentment. I think that that's fair.
yeah.
But she resents
I
her
mean,
for that.
it's a
But
fine resentment. That
yes,
part I'm like, "Oh, I get it."
but at the same time, she has the chest, like the suitcase with all of her mom's research immediately under her bed. And so she either, yeah,
Well, that I get a little because it's like no matter what, like, relationship you have, that is kind of something important, like,
I, I
it's like the
agree.
only thing you have of her.
I agree, but I think the thing that doesn't make sense is if that is gonna be the case, then she probably at least one point probably would have looked at this already. Like I just don't
Oh, well,
understand.
that's why I'm thinking maybe she saw something and it was, like,
Me,
clear, but we don't know that.
it's really weird, and it's also frankly just really contrived screenwriting because what they need to get her away from the girls so the girls could do something stupid and almost get killed, right?
Yeah.
And so they need to make like I need to go back and look at this stuff. But like if you're actually trying to streamline it and make it make more sense, it's like she's like, oh my god, this reminds me of a thing I had previously read in my mom's because she's reminded enough of her mom's research to want to look at it, but doesn't know it well enough where she has to like it just like feels like we need a reason for Cassie to leave these girls alone.
Yeah. And it should have been, Cassie goes and has a phone call
Mhm.
because it's 2003. Not everyone has cell phones yet,
Mhm.
even though technically this is post 9/11 New
She
York.
would have had a cell phone,
So,
yes.
yeah, so she would have had a cell phone. Well,
Mhm.
no, they threw him out, remember?
Oh,
Because
right,
she
you're
said
right, you're
they
right.
were tracking those things.
They can, yes.
So
She saw
she
Enemy of
would
the State.
but she could have gone and been like, "I have to go find a
Yeah.
payphone," they weren't as easy, and be like, "I have to, like, there's someone I have to call.
Hmm.
He'll know, like, how to help us. Stay here,"
Yeah.
and go and call him, and then just have one of those girls be dumb. Have one of those girls be
Yeah.
like, "She's taking too long. I'm hungry. I saw a diner. Let's just go there. We can be back."
Yeah.
If she's trying to, like, get help, she has to make a bunch of phone calls, like, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And then you cut out the weird, like, "I'm gonna be gone for, like, 5 hours because 'cause I'm
Mm.
driving back into the city."
Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing is yeah, they go to New Jersey, um, which, that's already taking a big enough L doing that. But yeah, so they're in the hotel and there's the whole bit where, well, as you mentioned, there's the CPR scene, which once again, get CPR certified. I should. I keep saying I'm going to, but I keep forgetting to. But
Well, all you have to do is
yeah.
compress in the same rhythm until,
Yeah.
like, you're
I
on guitar and someone else will join in.
I watch a lot of those like doctors react to movies and TV things, and so I know that I'm like, this is going to be the coup de grace of bad CPR because, as they say, in all those things, and I understand why they don't do it because it's you don't want to kill people, but like if you're not breaking the person's ribs, you're not doing it hard enough. But
Yeah,
anyway,
but she never
uh,
said that thing. But
no,
so anyway, they're in
but
this hotel. Yeah, they're in the hotel, and the line where I think
yeah,
he he knew my mom when she was in the Amazon researching spiders. I
before she
think
died,
that line before she died. I think that line comes in when, like, all the girls are like, "Wait, isn't this the
yeah,
guy?" And she's like, "Yeah," and then they're slowly doing all of those answers,
mm-hmm.
but it is not like they're doing the answers in a way where you're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Like, this is the same exposition, but it doesn't feel as much as, like, exposition.
Yes. Can I give though my opinion on this whole thing though? I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's cowardice. I mean, is it a bad line? Absolutely, but I think it's already out there. People already made fun of it. Like,
But I don't think it was in the movie at all.
really?
I think that was only like, I think when they were trying to do the
That's
trailer
a good
stuff,
point.
they were trying to be like, "We
That
need
you might be
someone to
right.
explain
Actually,
what's going on,"
you
and
might
so
be
they
right.
made up that horrid line,
Yeah.
and then everyone was like, "This is in this movie," and then we're like, "No,
Ah,
this is not in this movie."
But the thing is, it's not like the movie doesn't have dialogue that's that
No, and like,
uh,
we'll get into it. Let
yeah,
me,
because there's
you know
a
what?
line
Okay,
that I
so
want to get to. What is Cassie's revelation though? When she's at the hotel with the girls, what does she need to do? Which this almost made me like
she
laugh
has
out
to go
loud.
to the Amazon for a week. She's like,
Uh,
I just gotta go to the Amazon with some pictures and a dream. And so she drops the girls off with Ben and goes, watch these girls for a week. And he's like, okay.
mhm,
Um, I'll watch them and a pregnant lady.
mhm,
No worries. And so then she goes to the Amazon for a week where she literally is like, give me a piece of paper. She like does this and she's like, looks
mhm,
legit, and just
mhm.
like follows the
Yeah.
pictures that her mom took.
Also, a couple things, and this is just me being a dork, but like because they need to show she's going to Peru, it says now entering Peru. But why would she not just fly into Peru? Was she flying into Colombia and driving? Like
She's on a bus. She was
I,
on a bus. I
I
was
just there's so many things like that in this movie, and I'm like, I understand why you're doing this, but like, show her flying at like Lima International Airport and trust us. You don't have to have her on a bus
we got
going.
it.
But
We
yeah.
got the idea of it. Like, you don't worry about it. But anyways, so she flies to the Amazon. She meets the spider person man
Mm-hmm,
who said to her mom while she was dying,
mm-hmm,
when she comes back, I will be here for her to give her answers.
mm-hmm,
And he kind of doesn't. He just puts her in the water.
mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah.
like, here, connect with the past. And so she sees the past and why her mom
Mm-hmm.
died.
Yes.
Or like why her mom did all of this, and it was because she was going to die. Like, she had a disease that
Mm-hmm.
was like, they basically were like, she won't live that long, but she'll at least live a little,
Yeah.
and you can just from there see
Mm-hmm.
what's up and
Mm-hmm.
figure it out. Like, but
And
we
if
just
this movie
watched
was 20% more competent and Dakota Johnson was 20% more invested, this would be a very emotional moment. And I think it is a compelling idea. It is just like this movie, it just frankly did not earn this turn, I don't think. I just don't. I'm just not. Because once again, because Cassie Webb is not really a person, I don't know what trauma she's been like. We know that she resents her mom, but like,
Mhm.
what is this unlocking for her? What is she, and I know I'm asking these questions about a movie that doesn't really deserve this level of, introspection, but I think like the idea of, oh, she was doing this thing because she was in a race against time against you being born, like, oh, that's an interesting idea, but it's an hour and 20 minutes into Madam Web, so what are we gonna do?
Yeah,
um
and so
there's a line
ugh,
here that I think we need to discuss, which is a line that I almost never say things inadvertently out loud at movies, but I said, and this is a bit crass, but I said, "Oh, blow me," when the guy in the Amazon said, "When you take on the responsibility, great power will come." Um,
that listen, I wrote a piece defending all of the, like, with great power comes great
yes,
responsibility, like, kind of nods. It's a Spider-Man movie.
I
At its
understand,
core, it is still part of the Spider-Verse, and every single Spider-Verse thing has some fucking to do
but just
with
who is this guy?
power. And so I'm like, listen, it's not a Spider-Man movie if there isn't something about power and responsibility and all
uh,
that shit. And also, she doesn't turn around and look at Uncle Ben and go, with great power comes great
of
responsibility.
course,
Like, it's not like
it
she's
could have
giving
been
it to
worse.
him.
It could have been worse, but I guess for me, it's like this guy is he. I don't know who he is,
He's
and
her
I
Uncle Ben.
I also
His
feel
guy is her
like,
Uncle Ben.
yeah, I also feel like I'm kind of, at the point with where almost like just say the line or don't say it. It just try to Mad Libs it around. But no, it definitely was like, okay, she has a great power, but like I guess what they reveal is that her power is that she didn't get the super athlete feat powers from the spider, because I suppose it's a bit different if you get bit when you're still in utero. Um, sure, but she did get the future seeing powers, except in her version of it, unlike Ezekiel or whatever, she can change the future. And also, she can be in two places at once. I don't know. I'm lost.
She has astral projection. I didn't know spiders could astral project,
No.
but she can.
That explains
Um,
how they get in my mouth when I'm sleeping.
yeah, exactly. The astral project there. Yeah, so basically, like, she gets the answers that she needs for her powers, and she's like, great, I can use them now for
Mm,
my own benefit. And then she goes back to America. in
Mhm.
this time, which is a week, they say it multiple times that it's been a week, um, to see, like, she goes to where the girls are,
Mhm.
but Ben and Mary had to go to the hospital because Mary was giving birth, and so the girls were like they put up their hoods and they were like they were essentially, like, doing the superhero look. They were like this, they were like, "Alright, let's go. We gotta get
Yes.
this lady to the hospital."
Uh-huh.
And so, I think it's Maddie is the one that, like, just happened to turn at, like, a traffic camera,
Yes.
and so Ezekiel Sims and, Zosha Mamet are like Zosha?
I'm pretty sure it's Zasha. I looked it up. Yeah.
Zasha. I was like, "Sasha? That's not right." Zasha Mamet is like, "Oh my god, we got a hit." And so then they, like, go to attack, and Cassie gets there, like, right after they left, and so she's like, "Imma steal this ambulance and use it to, like, go and find them with my powers." And so she does. She tells Ben, like, "Get married to the hospital, he's not gonna be looking for you anymore." Because she gets the 3 girls, and
Mhm.
they're all like she's like, uses her vision to see a perfect plan of killing Ezekiel, which is
Yeah.
going back to the Pepsi factory. That is actually a firework factory,
Mhm.
and using the fireworks to kill him.
Yes, it is. It's just okay, and then they go there and they start lighting shit on
Mhm.
fire, like, way too willy-nilly. Like,
With
I know that
flares?
what?
With flares? They're
Yeah.
using flares.
And I know that she can see the future, so ostensibly she can be sure that they're not gonna get killed, but that's not a bet I'm gonna take if I'm not her. Like, if I'm Julia, I'm not gonna be like, "I'm gonna trust that you're gonna get me out of the way of these fireworks that are randomly going off." And as they're almost Jason Pierre-Pauling themselves, she's like, "We gotta call a helicopter," and, you know, they're gonna get off on the roof, and it just I think that because they didn't really establish a good coherent language for the visions. Like obviously there's like a weird effect that they put on them, but
Mhm.
because it's still pretty haphazard the way it's done, this there's just like there's such an odd pace to this that like really it simultaneously feels like it took forever and also was just 1 minute. Like it's a really weird sequence.
Well, and it's also like to just fast forward to the end so we can
Yeah.
talk about the stuff we need to talk about. The the fight sequence is weird because it is 4 women without Spider-Man
Yeah.
capabilities all just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Because the only one who has any kind of powers is Cassie, and all she can do is see into the future. Like she has
Yes.
no super strength, she has nothing else. So they're fighting a super strength man. Basically what happens is they figure it out. He falls into the water, and the S, because Cassie kept seeing the S on the Pepsi sign falling, the
Mm-hmm.
S falls and crushes him to death. But Cassie, because of all the fireworks, gets knocked into the Hudson,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the Hudson, not the East.
Yes, it is the Hudson.
Um, yeah, the East is on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
The gets knocked in the Hudson, so no wonder she ends up in a wheelchair and blinded because she's in the Hudson River.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I guess, like, a firework, like, falls into the water and just, like, blinds her because of the
I
flash, and then we don't really know why she can't walk anymore, like, that was not established,
no.
she just fell
It's
into water.
bizarre because like the thing that's bizarre about it is that water is much harder than people think it is in that like movies make it seem like
That is not a far
there's two
having
things
just been there,
there's
that is
two
not a
things
far
it's
fall.
not a far fall, and yes, I know, I see it every day whenever I take the N train home. um my beloved, and once again, I love, in the same way that as a previous Jersey City resident I appreciate the representative from Miss Marvel, this I appreciate the representation from Long Island City. But the fall is not that far, but also she had previously fallen from a bridge earlier in the movie and she was fine.
And she's
You
fine,
can't,
she literally was fine.
like, there has to be like the firework. Fine, that's how she's blind. What? Fine, yes, but you can have it that she is paralyzed and blinded from this. I'm willing to believe that for you, but she can't just fall in the water because she already fell in the water.
Like, whatever. So it was cool to see her. She like kind of she has her own like Dakota Johnson's own take on the like iconic Madam Web imagery, which
Yes.
is Cassie and Cassandra in a wheelchair with like the glasses on. And the last moments of this movie is like talking about how like her web does connect them all, and all of these girls have their moments in their Spider-Man suits that we just don't
Mhm.
see other
Yeah.
than these 2 moments.
Yeah.
And it's like their future and what they could do. It was basically setting up.
Yeah.
Here's the other movies we can
Yeah.
see, and we're like,
It's
really? Will
I,
we see
I'm
them?
trying to think in terms of sequel teases for movies that never came. I'm trying to think where this ranks in the funniest because there's a lot of good ones in the history of cinema, especially in the last like 10 years. Um,
Yeah.
but this one might be. It's either. I mean, I think the end of Morbius with Vulture is pretty, or is all ADR because they couldn't get Michael Keaton on set. Probably like that's up there.
Mhm.
I don't know. The MCU obviously has a bunch, but like with the MCU, anything can happen, so I don't want to write any of them off. But like, man, um,
And the first time I saw it, I sat through those credits thinking, like, maybe. No.
no, I looked it up in my seat because I'm like, I don't really feel like sitting through these credits if there's not a post credit scene. But so
Yeah.
that's Madam Web. And I think one thing we should briefly discuss is the three girls, their performances because obviously there's been a lot. It's one of those movies where one of the side stars became exponentially more famous in between production and now. Um,
Yeah. Sydney Sweeney is so famous.
and it's like crazy that like she doesn't that and I don't think it's for the movie's detriment, but like she just is one of the three. Like she's not I thought she was gonna be like a co-lead, but no. And
Well,
she's
none of like
yeah,
they barely get to do anything. Like
yeah,
Anya barely has
yeah.
a story outside of my father got deported.
And
Um,
I'm holding a lot of stock in Isabel Merced, so I was a bit disappointed. Um
yeah, it was like Maddie and Isabel's stories, very sad when you like start to unpack them. But
yeah,
then it's like Sydney Sweeney's like then she rolls in, it's like, my mom's in a mental institution and my dad got remarried and doesn't like me
yeah,
anymore. I was
yeah.
like,
And like the way that they show
what?
the way they show the not liking is so on the nose of like, you know, it's so many I think that like the thing about this movie, which makes I think special in terms of bad superhero movies, is that
Mhm,
it's not just ill conceived. There just were so many moments in it where you're like, this is, and I don't want to put this all at the feet of S.J. Clarkson because I think that clearly she's not, an imbecile behind the camera. That
yeah.
there's so many moments where it's like, because of some production thing or some last minute change or whatever, this is incompetently made in a way that you don't see in movies.
It just is like, what are we doing? And like, listen, Adam Scott is my boy, and I was so
Yes.
happy he was Ben Parker,
Hmm.
and it made me be like, cool, I want more Adam Scott as Ben Parker. Like that
Hmm.
I
And the
enjoy. Like, and I
beard was
don't
great.
want what?
The beard was great.
Yeah, I was like, and I don't really want any more Ben Parker stories.
No.
But if it was Adam Scott as Ben Parker, I'd be like, yeah, tell him to me.
Hmm.
Tell me all about
Yes.
Uncle Ben. What's Uncle Ben up to?
it, and like also the thing too is when he mentions that he met a girl and like they very
They
intentionally
don't
say her
say the
name,
name.
it's just like I just it's inexplicable because it's like you're holding on this woman for 5 extra seconds, but you're not saying the name, so you're doing both the wrong things. You're like doing too much fan service, but then you're also just not actually giving it to us.
And also, this movie made me realize that Richard and Ben Parker both were like, our ladies are Mary and May. Like,
Yeah, definitely strange, and like
I was just like, huh, that's weird that the Parker brothers were like
and
Mary Parker and
a
May
quick,
Parker.
I'll say going in, I actually did not know that Emma Roberts was in this movie, and I'm like, I felt bad because, and I mean this with complete no, I'm like, I didn't think her career was in this bad of a place that she needed to do this. I mean, I
Well,
don't want to be
maybe she
rude, but
no, maybe she was like, oh yeah, I'll do a superhero thing, and like was like, oh yeah, the legacy of Mary Parker is like we've only ever seen her one other time.
let me see something. I'm gonna look to see if. No, I was gonna check to see if any of S.J. Clarkson's because a lot of TV work. Like me, I figured maybe S.J. Clarkson directed a bunch of Scream Queens or something, but it doesn't look like that. So I'm just, you
I
know
think
what?
maybe she was yeah, that'd be cool because like there's literally
You're
only been
right,
one other actress who has played Mary
of
Parker like
course,
on TV movie.
and I think when I think Embeth Davidtz, what actress is a lot like her? I think Emma Roberts. But when I think South African character actress who made her fame in Schindler's List, I think Emma Roberts is the natural succession. No, uh, but yeah, I mean it's Ozzy. The thing that's crazy about sentence is actually mostly that Embeth Davidtz played Mary Parker in 2 scenes.
Yeah.
um, but no, I think that like the thing I'll say about this is I don't actually think that this is going to be a disaster for anyone's career. Really, like because even like Dakota, I feel like if Dakota Johnson did not have the press tour she just had, maybe because I think that she is like,
She's good in it. The thing
I
is,
don't know. I think
she's why it's funny because she's
she's
just the way she delivers these
yes,
lines is
she is
on
good in the version of the movie that she is playing in. She is, I think, disastrous in the movie that they're making. But I think that if you read her performance as a coherent thing, independent from the movie that's happening around her, she's very funny. But the rest of the movie is not supporting that at all.
the girls only like Maddie kind of
Yeah,
does. Like the way Maddie reacts to her
yeah,
is like, all right, you two at least are like somewhat on the same page.
yeah.
Teeny Sweeney is on a whole nother page from
I,
everybody else, and
I
then like Isabella Mercedes Anya is good. Like she
yeah.
is like solidly between what Sydney Sweeney's doing and what
And she's a pro. Like she's,
yeah,
she
and
was
what
like 12
Celeste
in
and
Transformers, so
Dakota.
she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
But the thing about Sydney Sweeney's performance is it almost Sydney Sweeney is playing it like she's making a '60s comic movie. Like she is so demure and
Yeah.
like you expected her to pull out a notepad and say she was writing something for the school paper. Like that's how she's playing the character.
Uh-huh.
Which I don't. It almost, I mean, I don't know. It almost feels like it's like a zag to be like, obviously, I played this one type of high school on TV. I'm gonna play the exact opposite, but like, I don't need that much
You
of
don't need to
that.
be that much of a nerd.
No, especially because like I think a thing that the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies did, I think, really well is like, you know, most nerds, even back in 2003, were not with tape glasses and pencil pushers and got shoved in lockers. Like it just kind of, and I feel like they eventually found that balance of like he's not a social like butterfly, but he's also not, you know, he doesn't have his pen spilling ink all over his shirt all the time.
No,
Um,
Peter is he's a people person and he knows how to talk to people, but
yeah,
he's just awkward. Like it's
yeah,
like he can talk to anybody. He is just like, no, but yeah, but I like this nerdy thing, and I'm just gonna talk. Oh, that's
yes,
cool. How does that exist?
yeah.
And he just talks so much, people are like, what are you
Yes,
talking?
I think the reason I care so much about it is because I relate to it a lot. Because growing up, I was
Mhm.
always a nerd. In that, I mean, I host a show called Marvel Cinematic University. Of course, I was a nerd, but I also like the joke I always make is like my mom was too social a person to ever raise antisocial kids, so I was always really talkative, but also still a nerd. And so I'm like, I didn't. My experience is not like Tobey Maguire getting punched because I'm a dork. It's because I'm probably annoying the kids around me, but I have friends. You know,
Yeah,
but yeah,
which
it's
is
Sydney's. Yeah,
Tom Holland's approach to Peter, which was
exactly.
what I always liked. I was like, oh yeah, he nailed it. He got both of them. He's figured it
Yeah,
out.
and Celeste O'Connor, an actor I was not familiar with. I had seen Freaky, but frankly, I didn't register them in it. But also, excuse me, they're also in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Wow, I apologize. I mean, not that Ghostbusters Afterlife is a has a bunch of memorable
Yeah,
characters popping off the screen.
I've seen them in like A Good Person and
Mm,
Afterlife and stuff like that.
yeah, the only person who popped in Afterlife is Carrie Coon, but that's probably just a me thing. Um,
Mhm.
You can't. But what else? But yeah, but Maddie also feels a bit like the very that character is both that it takes place in 2003, but also is such a 2003 teenage rascal.
Mhm.
In a way that like it wasn't super annoying, but there's just like I don't know. Like I said, this movie has so much shit to talk about, and the thing about it is like I'm kind of the opinion, and I wonder if you agree. I think you do, just based on the way you talk about other movies, that the actual like what a movie is about, like what characters a movie's about, what the general plot is almost the least important thing of whether or not a movie's good or not. Because I think a lot of people are
Mhm.
like, they were never going to be able to make a good Madam Web movie, and I'm like, maybe, but the reason this movie is bad is not because it's a Madam Web movie. You know what I mean? In the same that,
No.
like the reason why Morbius isn't good is not because it's about like once again you could make a movie about a guy who trying to save his life becomes a vampire. Like that's actually not a bad movie pitch. And so I feel like this movie is getting dinged with like they try to make a Madam Web movie. It's like yeah, I guess if you take some of the Spider-Man references out and like maybe make it like less web imagery and make it just about a person who gets powers that can see the future, like there is a decent movie to be made about this. But I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
I mean, I think part of the allure of Madame Web as a character is kind of like her guidance that she eventually ends up giving Peter. And I think
Yeah.
like the end of this movie, I was like, oh yeah, there she is. Like she's ready to give Peter Parker his advice. Like that's where I got interested. Like I was like, I've never was interested in like Madame Web
No.
because her power is literally just looking into the future. And so like she's just giving people advice. Um And so I do like listen, I think it's fun to give her this like backstory and like this connection to the Parkers. So then when
Mm,
Peter eventually
yeah.
ends up asking her for advice, there's already a connection there.
Mm,
But it is really one of those things where I was like, didn't need it, but I'm also really glad that we have a bad
yes.
female led superhero movie. We can
It
have bad ones that we can be like, this was cheesy, but I'm gonna watch it because it's
yes.
on
I
movies, mostly Daredevil.
I definitely have recommended this movie to fellow sickos like myself, and that's the term I always use because there really are two different types of people. There are types of people who like really think a lot about what movies they're going to see, and there are types of people like you and I. I think I'm as someone who follows you on Letterboxd. I think I'm not talking out of turn of just it's on wherever else it. And
Yeah.
yeah, if you're that type of person, I think that this is a really fun. As far as bad movies I've seen in theaters are concerned, I have seen much less interesting. Like I think that if you are someone with an open mind who watches a lot of dumb movies, I think that there's a lot to find interesting about this.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really would love nothing more than to see the emails about this movie because there's so many decisions that you could, like I said, this movie was
Sony Leak
yes,
Part 2.
yes.
Let's see the details.
Seth Rogen, pick another country to make a movie about. But the but no, like because like I was saying, this movie clearly was noted so much to death. It basically crossed a threshold where it felt like no one was giving notes.
Yeah, they were just like, "No notes. Let's
Yeah,
just roll the camera."
and so yeah, I'm glad that we have it. Um, and frankly, like I'm glad that it's a meme, you know, and I hope that people learn some lessons from it. In terms of like I don't know if I'm interested to see what Craven the Hunter is going to look like because I think that Craven probably has I don't know, all of these movies has the filmmaker who I think is like actually like, who I like his movies. I mean, I forgot who I'm talking to.
DC? Yeah, you're
I
talking to me. You're talking to Triple Frontier's numero uno fan.
yeah, I mean, I forgot.
Um,
I should have noticed from the gigantic catfish tattoo I saw on your forehead, but
yeah,
uh,
Catfish Morales.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm excited about Craven, but Craven's also my favorite Spider-Man villain. So I feel
yeah,
like no matter what, I'm just going to like Craven
yeah,
because, like, out of all of these movies, like, I liked Venom a lot. I was surprised I liked Venom because most of the
yeah,
time I hate that Venom is the like
yeah,
it's the Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and then Venom are like the
mhm,
only 3 we ever get stories of.
yes,
And so I was like, "Okay, like, here we go, we're back with Venom," and then I had the time of my life with
yeah,
Venom, so I was like, "Okay, like, this can really work, like,
yeah,
to focus them." And at least we haven't gotten, like, the Green Goblin movie
yes. Eh,
Otto Octavius, but, like, I like that this is kinda how they're doing, like, their own weird Sinister Sixy
yeah.
version of things. Like, yeah, give me Craven. I wanna learn
Mhm.
all about that man who just loves animals.
And I think that Craven has a thing that might work for it. I think the reason why Venom works, and I'm also a big fan of Venom too. Me and Paul Thomas Anderson both quote, I liked Venom too," is because Tom Hardy is a crazy person and like really takes it seriously, and
Yeah.
like the and I want when there's a movie that's like kind of made and exclusive upon for Craven reasons, like all these Sony Spider movies are purely financially driven because they don't have they're doing they want to have their own they don't want to have to share these profits with Marvel Studios, and so I think when you have a movie like that I think you want the people at the top to be taking it not seriously at all, and the people
Mhm.
making it take it very seriously. And I would argue that Madam Web has the inverse problem, where it feels like the
Yeah.
executives were very taking it very seriously. We need to get the lore right. We need to get these characters. Then we need to get this, and this.
No
And then the
one else
people on set
cares.
were not taking it seriously. And like, yeah, I just feel like when Tom Hardy was like, "I'm gonna jump in this lobster tank and eat a whole lobster," it's like that's the energy. If you're gonna be a B tier superhero movie, which these inevitably will be, have some of that B tier fun, not like, whatever Madam Web is. But, we got an hour long podcast out of it, so it can't be for nothing. Rachel, do you have any final thoughts you want to get in before I send you on your way?
Just watch it for Adam Scott for me.
Yes. Shouts to Benji Wyatt, the star of our table read.
Yes, Benji White, the cat, the son of Zemo.
Yes, one of the best cats. Uh, and yeah, I agree. Rachel, where can people find your work? I know you're always putting up things like, I don't know, defenses of the Great Power Responsibility line.
You can find me on Twitter at Rachel Leishman, on Instagram and TikTok at Rachel_Leishman, and you can find my work at The Mary Sue and Collider.
Yes, please
Oh,
find
and I host podcasts.
Yes, Padro Pascal.
Yeah,
I need to
Padro
find.
Pascal, the Ford cast, and Cinema Sibs.
Yes, I need to find my Padre Pascal T-shirt. I was looking for. I was going to wear it today, but I couldn't find it. It's probably deep in my.
Oh,
A
I'm
lot of
wearing
my
a Daredevil.
T-shirts. Oh, I'm not Daredevil. Yeah, a lot of my T-shirts are deep in the. During the winter when you just get deep in the pantry,
Yeah,
the hamper, and you haven't found them forever.
the
Anyway,
pantry.
yeah, the
Like I said.
pantry. Yes, for some reason that word sounded right for a full 5 seconds. But you can find me at the J Christie. Listen to my other podcast, Love at First Psych, where me and Andre Breyer are talking about the USA Network original series Psych. And please subscribe to our Patreon. We got some exciting stuff coming up. We'll be starting the Mission Impossible franchise. We just finished Fast and Furious. And yeah, so you can join our Discord. It's $3 to get all of our episodes in the Discord and $8 for some bonus perks like being a guest on our mailbag. And if you're watching this on YouTube, great. If you're not, find us on YouTube at MC University Pod. I'm trying to remember if I've said everything AC always says. Oh, and as he says, 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. Rate us 5 stars wherever you are listening. And for Rachel Leishman, for AC, who couldn't make it, I've been Jay Christie. Have a good one.